I think each player has their specific sets.
She's the world number one. She has more Grand Slam titles than almost anyone active on tour, and she wasn't even in the building. Meanwhile, a 20-year-old was doing something no one inside that tournament had planned for. Ticket requests started piling up. Not for the top seeds. Not for the defending champion. For her. The tournament chairman noticed it first. Then he said something on a live microphone that he couldn't take back. And within 48 hours, a reaction came in from a corner of the tour that nobody expected to hear from. What did he say? What did she do on that court? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this story isn't really about one match in Washington. Mark Ein, chairman of the Mubadala Citi DC Open, said virtually all of the ticket requests for this year's tournament were about one question. When is Alex Eala playing? He said this into a live microphone on July 28, 2026. 72 hours before that statement, Eala arrived in Washington for her tournament debut, ranked 28th in the world. She was drawn against Zheng Qinwen, a 2024 Olympic gold medalist and Grand Slam finalist, in round one. Nobody inside the tournament office knew what a Filipino turnout in the American capital would look like. They found out on the practice courts before a single competitive point was played. On Monday, July 27th, Eala walked out to a side practice court to hit. On the court next to her, warming up her own session, was Naomi Osaka, a four-time Grand Slam champion. The fans lining the fence were not there for the four-time major winner. They were pressed against the rail for the 20-year-old, phones raised, flags folded under their arms, waiting for a practice hit with no stakes and no scoreboard. That was the moment tournament staff realized what they had walked into. At the top of the ranking table, the world number one was not in the building. Aryna Sabalenka had skipped the Mubadala DC Open entirely, positioning for Cincinnati and the US Open instead. Her absence would not have been a story on its own, except her year had already been a chorus of scheduling frustration. She told The Athletic in January the tour was insane. She called out Miami's tournament direction in March, saying she was shocked by the scheduling decision. She floated a Roland Garros boycott over prize money. Her frustration with results is not new either. In 2023, following her US Open final loss to Coco Gauff, Sabalenka was filmed smashing her racket in the locker room before throwing it in a trash can. That incident predates the current 2026 season by 3 years and is not connected to the events in Washington. After her Wimbledon round of 16 exit to Osaka on July 5th, 2026, she told the room she just wanted to go get completely drunk. The world number one spent 2026 complaining about the tour. A 20-year-old ranked number 28 spent that same year quietly becoming the tour's most valuable commercial asset. Mark Ein did not soften his language when asked about ticket demand. He told the ticketing team the number was initially 80, then corrected himself on the record to virtually all. When the person responsible for filling seats admits a player ranked outside the top 25 outsold the entire top 10 field, that is a documented claim, not an opinion. Eala then walked on a stadium court and delivered a match that justified the demand. Her opponent, Zheng Qinwen, took the first set 6-4 and broke early in the second. Eala responded by winning 7 straight games. The final score was 4-6, 6-4, 6-1. When it was over, Zheng offered what Sports Illustrated has described as her frosty handshake, a brief clasp of Eala's hand followed by an immediate pivot to the umpire. This was the second time in 2026 a top player visibly struggled around Eala's court. Yulia Ostapenko had done something similar earlier in the year, motioning at a spectator mid-match at 4-1. First Ostapenko, then Zheng. Before we go further, if you're new here, this channel tracks the WTA and ATP Tours match by match before the rest of tennis media catches up. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next one. The week produced a direct contrast day by day. On Monday, Sabalenka was still absorbing a Wimbledon exit that ended with wanting to get drunk in her own words. On Tuesday, Eala won 7 straight games off an Olympic champion on stadium court, while thousands of Filipino flags waved in the American capital. On Wednesday, Mark Ein repeated on the record that virtually every ticket call for weeks had been about the player ranked 28th. The commercial numbers support the ticketing claim independently. Eala's Instagram sits at over 920,000 followers, with an engagement rate widely cited at 15 to 20%, a figure market analysts have called far above the WTA average. That gap between her ranking and her commercial activity is measurable, not speculative. Steve Johnson, a former ADP top 20 player and U.S. Open doubles champion with 12 years on tour, co-hosts the Nothing Major podcast with Sam Querrey. Johnson has no nationality connection to Eala and no sponsorship relationship with her. When Querrey asked him directly, on record, whether Eala had become a bigger draw than Sabalenka on the WTA Tour, Johnson answered in one word: yes. He then compared what he was watching to Joao Fonseca's rise on the men's side, the standing room only side court phenomenon that drew crowds in Miami and Melbourne. That comparison was made back in February. The DC tournament turned it into a confirmed, repeatable pattern. For 20 years, the WTA Tour operated on a top 5 stars ticketing model, where ranking alone determined ticket sales. What Eala's DC run demonstrates is a different model. A player who unlocks a brand new market becomes commercially significant regardless of ranking. Li Na did this for China between 2011 and 2014. Fonseca is doing it for Brazil right now. Eala represents the WTA's first Southeast Asian version of this same pattern, and tournament organizers are already adjusting their decisions around her. 3 checkpoints will test whether this pattern holds. First, Eala's second-round match at DC on Thursday against Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion who beat Eala in straight sets in Stuttgart back in April. Second, the U.S. Open main draw beginning August 25th, a stadium court assignment that would directly test her drawing power. Third, Indian Wells 2027, where a 16,000-seat stadium would need to be filled by a player who may still be ranked outside the top 20. Eala has not been undefeated this season, and that is worth stating plainly. Fernandez beat her in straight sets in Stuttgart in April. Jasmine Paolini ended her Wimbledon run. Those losses are documented, and the rematch with Fernandez was scheduled within 48 hours of the Zheng win. After the win over Zheng, Eala addressed reporters in the DC media room. Her statement was direct. I think I've already had that in me. It's been trained. I've practiced. I've had more experience now to implement that mindset at the higher level. She made no reference to the Stuttgart loss and no reference to the ranking gap between her and the tour's top players. The week's sequence is documented in full. On Monday, Filipino fans lined a practice court fence for Eala while a 4-time major winner warmed up on the adjacent court. On Tuesday, an Olympic gold medalist lost 7 straight games and gave a brief handshake at the net. On Wednesday, the tournament chairman confirmed on record that virtually every ticket inquiry for weeks had centered on the player ranked 28th. Sabalenka remains the world number 1 by ranking, but at a tournament she did not attend, the ticketing data, the practice court turnout, and an independent analyst's on-record comparison collectively established one fact. The tour's highest-ranked player and its most commercially significant player are no longer the same person. If Eala reaches the DC final and receives a stadium court assignment at the U.S. Open, the question becomes whether Sabalenka addresses this shift directly or continues not commenting on it at all. Drop your prediction on the Fernandez rematch in the comments below and be specific about the score. If you've been calling this shift since Miami 2025, this channel is where the receipts get documented match by match. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.